It's finally out. Hey, I'm the Comment Movies, and I was able to watch Dune Part 2, so let's review it. And before I start the review, I just want to say that this was probably my worst movie experience I ever had. Not with the movie, but with everything else. Like, the theater itself, the seats were extremely uncomfortable. The theater was just so hot in there that I was sweating by the time I walked out of the theater. That does not mean it followed into the movie, though. So, let's start off with everything I liked about it. Oh my. This movie was incredible. Let's start with the music. When it comes to the score for this movie, I thought Oppenheimer's soundtrack sounded good. But comparing Oppenheimer to this soundtrack, Oppenheimer seems like nothing. This soundtrack for this movie is amazing. I think this is the best piece of music ever that I ever listened to, not just in movie soundtracks, but of all time. I feel like this is the best of it. Because of the way the score is used with the movie, like you listen to the score on its own, and the score sounds amazing. But then combine that score with the movie and the context that is put into, the score is incredible. And this is probably the best piece of score and music I have ever listened to. And I will be listening to this soundtrack for a long time. Then we shift over to the actors. And when it comes to the actors and actresses in here, like Timothee, Chalamet, Zendaya, Florence Pugh, Austin Butler, all those famous people in here, this is probably their best performance out of every single movie they've been in. Yes, best performance. Timothee Chalamet, I don't know him in a whole lot of movies to really say that this is his best performance, because this is his best performance, but that's more impressive when you look at people like Austin Butler, who played Elvis. Saying that this is his best performance is really saying something. This movie is the best performance for not just these four people, in my opinion, for every single actor in this movie. This is their best performance that they've been in. Because of the way the actors just portrayed every character, brought their character arcs and everything that was carried over, and they were able to bring this character to life with every vocal tone, every decision they make. They just brought the character to life and was able to continue their story and really make it work. And of course the visuals in this movie, this is a shock to no one, but the visuals in this movie are also amazing. It follows from the first movie and really brought those amazing visuals to place. And it looks amazing still, especially in IMAX. Okay, now this next bit is only, you only care for this next bit if you read the book, but there's scenes added in this movie that weren't in the book, but they were good. I really like the changes in here because I'm not going to spoil anything from the book or movie, but there's stuff in the book where they kind of skip over stuff that I wish they kind of explained more on instead of just using dialogue to fill in the gaps. This movie doesn't really run into that problem because it made changes so it doesn't interfere with that problem, and it works way better because you actually see all these events happen instead of them just being skimmed over with dialogue. I feel like we actually were able to see these events happen. It didn't really get to that big change of the story that really shifted everything. And I really like what they did by continuing the story like that. It didn't really follow the book exact. It's not the best adaptation I've seen from book to movie, but the movie on its own was able to fill in that story and built it up in an amazing way. Now, of course, Dune Part 1. This is a Part 2. It says it in the title. And for Part 1, the one back in 2021, I feel like this movie does a really good job at continuing off of that movie and really just bringing the story over. And everything that was set up in that movie is basically continued on it over here. And those arcs that were set up are also carried on over here. And mostly the story is paid off. And you really do have a satisfying payoff for what was really set up in that first part, that in that 3-hour part, everything set up there was completed in this movie in a satisfying way. And this movie is just so intriguing that throughout this entire movie, I had goosebumps. I was shaking in my seat. I was at the edge of my seat. I had all of that stuff going on with me throughout this entire movie because of the score, the action, just everything amazing with this movie. And I was also sweating, but that's because of the theater. Now, this movie is just a big ol' spectacle. Like, this movie is amazing. This movie is insane. Like I said before, the soundtrack, the actors, everything like that, everything I mentioned before. Take all of those stuff together and put them into this big old spectacle, and you have this amazing movie. Phenomenal movie. A great movie. Everyone's saying that this movie is a masterpiece. It's the best sci-fi movie out there. And it is 100% that. My opinion on the book is I think it's probably one of the greatest book series I've read of all time. That basically follows into this movie. This movie is probably one of the best movies of all time. And it is an amazing movie. Anyways, if I listed everything, every little thing I liked about this movie, we'll be here all night. So let's move on to everything I didn't like about the movie. And basically all my problems that I had first time watching this movie, they're going to be fixed immediately. Right when I go watch the movie again, these problems are going to go away. Because these problems I had with this movie were either because of the movie theater experience that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, or just because I read the book, so interceptions in the way. But all these problems that I'm about to say are going to be fixed the moment I watch the movie again. And basically, the only problem I have with this movie is basically the runtime-ish. So, because a movie book, like I said there were changes, and they skipped some stuff. Well, because when watching the movie, I love those scenes in the book, so I was waiting for those scenes to happen in the movie, but they never happened, so it kind of made the runtime feel long, because I was waiting for those scenes to happen, and some stuff were out of order and everything like that, so it was kind of hard for me to pinpoint when they were going to happen, so that just made the runtime feel long to me. But if you have not read the book, that will not be a problem for you. This movie's going to fly by, but for me, again, rewatch is going to fix this problem. The runtime felt long because I was waiting for those scenes to happen. Dune Part 2 is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. This movie took everything I loved about the book and brought it into the film and just told it in its own way that was very faithful to the book and was really accurate. And I cannot wait for what they do next with this series, because I love the series of books and this movie. You guys should definitely watch this movie in theaters, biggest screen possible. It is worth it. Go watch this movie. But you probably need to watch part 1 first, but watch this movie. It is worth it. Trust me. And just to show that at the beginning of this video, I said that this was my worst movie theater experience I ever had. And for me to like this movie as much as I did is to show how good this movie is. If you can't tell, I obviously recommend this movie. And out of 10, I'll give Dune Part 2 currently right now with that one problem in the way, a 9.5 out of 10. But like I said, rewatch, probably gonna fix that problem. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and see you guys later. Goodbye.